So was your first TV matches, was it with WCW or WWE?
My first TV matches with were with WCW, but a WWF came shortly after that. Did my first WCW tapes in June of '95, and I think September, a couple months later, that's when I was booked for WWF tapings in Michigan. Scott D'Amore was a booker back then for what they call extra talent now. They used a lot more of us back then because you remember the
Oh yeah,
matches, there were a lot more enhancement matches than there are
sure.
now. Um, so, yeah, I did my first WCW shots, and WCW took more of a liking to me as a potential hire, which was what ended up happening. So that's when I met you. That was when I met you guys. That was just, if you say '97, I signed in May of '97. So it's probably right before that. But I was on a nightly guarantee with them for that almost 2 year period before they gave me that contract. And that was, I had a heck of a run there. I had a three and a half year run with WCW. So that was a great job.
Who'd you work at the Michigan WWF tapings?
First night, they were doing a live back then. They were doing a live Raw, and then they tape one. And I wrestled Shane Douglas, who was the Dean, Dean
Okay.
Douglas. That was actually, and I'm friends with Shane to this day. We always talk about that. That was my first WWF match, and it was his first TV match as Dean Douglas. Uh, and the second night, I worked with Triple H. Believe it or not, when he was Hunter
Wow.
Hearst Helmsley,
Mhm.
he had just gotten there. He had only been there a few months, and he gave me that pedigree, and I was scared for my life. But he was a good worker then. You could tell he was going to go on and be a top hand. He already was. He was so smooth, and I knew he was broken by Killer Kowalski, and I knew Terry Taylor worked with him a lot, who ended up working with me a lot too. And man, he was smooth, man, and he got all those muscles, and he can work, and he looked like the Hulk. So.
Yeah. So it's just two matches?
That was a 2 day, my first run with them, and then about a month later, they actually Scott had got me and Rhino. I met Rhino on those tapings. That's where we met. Those Michigan WWF tapings. I forgot. I think he worked with Duggan maybe, but a month after that, they liked us so much. The month later, they flew us all out to Winnipeg, Canada, to do like a pay-per-view and 2 TV shots, and I want to say the first night, once again, the Raw was, I did the taped Raw with Marty Jannetty, which was, oh my gosh, how awesome to wrestle Marty Jannetty on Raw, who I was just a few years ago in high school. I'm watching him on TV with Sean, and they're just excellent, right, as a team. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, is this really happening? And 7-8 minute match, like a real match on Raw, and Vince is calling it, and Jerry Lawler is, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm doing this. And second night was Savio Vega, another. Did
Phenomenal.
I luck out or what? To get great workers to work with, and just what an experience.
You don't realize how good Savio Vega is until you're in the ring with him.
Yeah, he was awesome, and he was awesome with me, a 20-year-old kid who's just out there to do the job.
Yep.
But all those guys I just mentioned to you, they were all getting a push, but they wanted to make a match. They didn't want to beat anyone in 90 seconds because that doesn't
Right.
do anybody any good. It does it to this day, and not to get off on a tangent, but not I hear where they use the local extras, and
Sure.
man, you can't have a superstar beating up a local guy that no one ever heard of. If they go more than 30 seconds, it makes the guy look bad. You know what I'm saying? It's like you
Sure.
got to have some competitive matches with guys that look good and can wrestle and have experience. And back then, they wouldn't let us go in there and do a TV match unless they knew. Like they'd had Killer Kowalski check us out in the ring before the tapings to make sure we could run the ropes and take bumps and all that stuff. Just make kind of gauge your experience, because you can look bad out there even in a
Yeah.
short match, right? And
Sure.
someone
Of
could get
course.
hurt pretty bad.
I remember I wrestled Savio when he was Quang.
Oh,
You know,
cool. Yeah,
so
cool
so
gimmick.
Kevin, you know how tall Kevin Nash is. I
Yeah,
mean, he's a giant. So
right.
someone was talking to Savio about his flexibility. He stood up, he took his foot, and he extended it to Kevin's chin, and he just held it there
Oh my
in a
gosh.
standing position, like on one leg. Like,
Yeah.
again, if you haven't been in the ring with him, you don't know how good the man is.
Right.
Such a good
Like I
worker.
said, another 7, 8 minute TV match where he let me look good and
Yeah.
made the comeback and took care of me. And nobody, there was one other match that I had with WWF. This was the one I was nervous about. It was me and a guy in a tag against the Harris brothers, who were going as the Blue Brothers at the
Yeah.
time, with Dutch Mantel. Dude, they're big, rough, tough. And I'm once again, I'm my daughter's age right now. She's 20. I'm just a kid. And I'm like, man, if I screw up out there, these guys will kill me and then go home for lunch, right? Like,
Right.
just like that. And so I'm nervous as heck. And Dutch Mantel comes up to me, goes, "Kid, how long you been working?" I said, 2 years. He goes, 20 years. I said, no, sir, 2 years. He knew I was nervous. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it was nothing. It
Yeah.
really was. The match was nothing. They were everything. They give you the big boot and you don't even feel it. And I'm like, oh, this is what I got in this for. 7 days a week, I'll do this.
Yeah, I worked
Yeah.
them before. Simple. It's so funny. Everyone's like, "Oh, how is TV?" Because I must have done 40 TV jobs, and I'm like, "You're going there to make people look good. They're going to take care of you."
Right.
I mean, did Matt Bourne knock me out? Yeah, but he did that to everybody. There
Yeah.
were people. You're like, "Oh man, I'm working with so and so," but for the most part, they're pros. They're there for a reason.
Right. Mr. Perfect started that way. So if you didn't start, if you're became a star in the business and you didn't start off doing jobs on TV, you're lucky. You're
Yeah.
really lucky. You're not necessarily more talented than anyone, because nobody's more talented than Kurt Hennig. And his father was a Hall of Famer when he was born. So even he had to pay his dues. And I think there's something to that. If we can survive that, we have a chance to go on and become something. I think it's a good test. I think everybody should start that way. You're going to have your exceptions like Bill Goldberg, where when they seen him, you could see the money dripping off him. We're like, we got to get him out there because it's a business thing. And Bill, I thought Bill was a great guy. He was always cool to me. But there's going to be exceptions like him, where if there's money to be made right away, they're going to do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's always
Yeah.
been that way. It'll always be that way. Um, but I think most of us, most guys, even starting out now, you're going to have to pay your dues. And if you can survive that, then they might believe in you at some point, and they can change anybody around. They beat Barry Horowitz for 7 years, every single match. And then all of a sudden he beats Candido and they're on SummerSlam, and he's one of the hottest baby faces. So they can change that any day of the week. So go out there and, do your best to, if you got 2 minutes, make it the best darn 2 minutes you possibly can. The 2 minutes starts when you come through the walkway. You know what I mean? So you get your
Yeah.
character, you be a character. They'll always notice character.
If promoters want to reach you, if people want to book you, where can they do that?
I'm all the big social media, on, it's called X now, right? At Swinger underscore Johnny, Johnny underscore Swinger on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook as well. Easy to find, hard to get. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm easy to get either. I'm not cheap, but I'm affordable.